story about alleged workers' comp fraud, alleged overtime fraud, replete with all kinds of political name dropping and investigations, and a $550,000 investigation. Plus, you got $60,000+ in overtime fraud alleged, and $70,000+ in workers' comp fraud alleged. It's a pretty sticky story with a lot of ins and outs, and we've had some updates in the past 48, 72 hours since we last talked about this, and this deals with the case involving Jenny Thornley. And if you're familiar with the case at all, Jenny Thornley was somebody who ultimately was charged with overtime fraud, and then it was found out that Thornley also had some let's just say communications with the governor's office about allegations of workers' comp claims from unfounded sexual assault allegations. And some of the documents that have come out since showed that Thornley filed multiple claims saying that the governor office was her employer, which it wasn't. It was the Illinois State Police Merit Board. You've also got the filing showing that she claimed that CMS ultimately, or the governor's office was her employer, and then the governor's chief counsel was her supervisor, and then ultimately it was the CMS filing. So it gets convoluted real quick. But I do want to just share with you some of the most recent developments here on this very, very convoluted case. And of course, you can read more of this via my Twitter account. You can see the recent articles I've produced for the Center Square and also Illinois Radio Network. So I'd encourage you to go and check those out because, again, there's been a lot of updates just in the past 48, 72 hours or so. But the most recent headline is Appellate prosecutor, quote, "We've not seen any appointment in politically connected workers' compensation fraud allegations." So I'm just going to read this to you so that I don't get over my skis in explaining all of it because it gets, like I said, pretty convoluted rather quickly, especially when you start thinking about how the Attorney General's office is involved in this, and in particular, when it comes to the Attorney General's office saying that they have referred cases when they haven't referred cases, and even calling concerns about such referred cases as I'll just let the Illinois Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, make that be heard what he thinks the concerns are all about.
Because this is just something that is made out of nothing by somebody who's running for office who knows nothing about the office or nothing about how government works.
So we'll hear him also call it all a nothing burger. So here's the story that is most recent. Despite the Illinois Attorney General's office saying and referred a case of alleged workers' compensation fraud with possible political connections to the Illinois office of the appellate prosecutor, no such appointment has been made. So midday Friday, the Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul said he referred a case of alleged workers' compensation fraud out because there's a typical conflict, something that's done all the time in different cases, he said. And he downplayed the significance of his prosecuting the case as a nothing burger. So here is Attorney General Kwame Raoul talking about this very issue after I asked a reporter in Chicago to field the question for me because I wasn't up in Chicago when the Attorney General was at a separate news conference. And the question was simple. And I think you can hear the question here asked by NBC's Marianne Ahern.
Why did you forward the Thornley work compensation fraud case to the appellate prosecutor's office instead of prosecuting it yourself? What's the conflict within your office handling that case?
Well, I'll take you through there's an employee who made allegations with regards to sexual harassment. In that case, we become the lawyer for the state, and so we're engaged.
I want to stop it there, and again, kind of paint the picture here, right? So the question was, as Marianne Ahern read, why Attorney General Kwame Raoul is not prosecuting this case. And we'll get to the particulars there. But if you're watching along on Facebook, you can see the reaction from the governor standing behind Raoul and even from Raoul as the question's being asked.
Why did you forward the Thornley work compensation fraud case to the appellate prosecutor's office instead of prosecuting it yourself? What's the conflict within your office handling that case?
Well, I'll take you through there's an employee who made allegations with regards to sexual harassment. In that case, we become the lawyer for the state, and so we're engaged in adverse to the person making the allegations. After an investigation, it's revealed that there's potential for fraud from that employee. It will look like retaliation if you're prosecuting the person that you're adverse to. So it's your typical conflict, which is common. We get cases referred to our office from state's attorneys where there's a conflict. Throughout the state, we do murder cases, we do all sorts of cases if there's a conflict. It's nothing unusual. Let me go on with that, because this is just something that is made out of nothing by somebody who's running for office who knows nothing about the office or nothing about how government works. It's been alleged that CMS got involved in a workers' compensation claim for an employee that wasn't an employee of CMS. Newsflash, CMS handles risk management for all state employees, whether or not they work directly for CMS. So this is a nothing burger. A nothing burger.
All right, thanks everyone.
And then Raoul walks off, and again saying that it's a nothing burger. And the questions were, ultimately why he's not prosecuting this case. Now, the Attorney General's office last week told me that they referred the case to the Appellate Prosecutor's office. So I asked the Appellate Prosecutor's office, and I even filed a Freedom of Information Act request to see if they've had any communications about this. And in particular, an email Friday morning before Raoul made that statement to Tim Dimon at the AG's office from the appellate prosecutor's chief deputy director, David Robinson, said, quote, "We've not seen any appointment or any investigation by law enforcement that would initiate an appointment," he said in an email I obtained through a public records request. He said the appellate prosecutor's office has never done, to my knowledge, any workers' compensation fraud case. Our experience has been that those issues are directed to the AG's workers' comp fraud division. Again, this multi-pronged story, it stems all around a former state employee and former Pritzker campaign worker, Jenny Thornley. It includes allegations of overtime fraud, unfounded allegations of sexual assault, and alleged workers' compensation fraud. Thornley was the chief financial officer for the Illinois State Police Merit Board. A police report from Springfield PD I got shows an interview with a witness of the alleged overtime theft in September 2020, saying that Thornley was an at-will employee appointed to the position without CMS protection or union protection. Thornley was fired in July 2021 after being investigated for overtime fraud and making unfounded sexual assault allegations against her then supervisor, Jack Garcia. So private investigations went on, costing you, the taxpayer, $550,000 and the alleged overtime fraud, $67,000. Thornley faces those charges in a Sangamon County courtroom. She's back in it October. Now, Wednesday, as I said, Raoul's office told me in an email that they forwarded the overtime case to the state's appellate prosecutor's office. But public records actually show that the Illinois office of the appellate prosecutor was requested by Sangamon County State's Attorney Dan Wright, and it was ordered by a judge in April 2021, months before charges were filed against Thornley in the overtime fraud case. The state's attorney was already representing Thornley's son as a victim in a separate criminal case pending trial in Sangamon County. Now, separate allegations of Thornley committing workers' compensation fraud with possible assistance from the governor's office have been made by Raoul's political opponent, Tom DeVore. And DeVore said that Raoul is protecting the governor instead of doing his job in prosecuting workers' compensation fraud. Chicago Tribune pegs that overtime or the workers' compensation benefits at $70,000. Now, The Attorney General's office told me via email that just as we referred the theft and forgery allegations, which they didn't, the state's attorney's office prompted that to happen locally here. We've referred allegations that Ms. Thornley committed workers' compensation fraud to the appellate prosecutor's office. Our understanding is the matter under review. But I asked Friday through a FOIA request to see if they have anything. And again, they came back and said, they don't have that. So the appellate prosecutor's office said, we have not seen any appointments or any investigation by law enforcement that would initiate an appointment. So what's going on here? Kind of interesting to see the back and forth, but the Illinois Department of Insurance has a website talking about the Workers' Compensation Fraud Unit, and it investigates reports of workers' compensation fraud. And the website says they may refer cases for prosecution to the Illinois Attorney General or the county state's attorney. But again, I think that the sole jurisdiction over workers' comp fraud is the Illinois Attorney General's office. There's going to be a lot more about this story, no question, but as Attorney General Kwame Raoul suggests, he believes that it's a nothing burger.
So this is a nothing burger. A nothing burger.
All right, stay tuned. Coming back here with Springfield's Morning